DJ!
What up, man?
Surprise, you're on camera.
What's up?
Hey, there you go.
How's
Hey,
it
just,
going, man?
all right, man.
Good to see
Yeah, I don't know how to do this.
you. Well, half the work is done already because you got your, you have no charge pipe on.
Nope,
So
no
that'll
nothing.
help us out. No EGR, no intercooler.
No nothing. Everything is bare.
Yeah.
So
It
clean up.
shouldn't be too bad.
Yeah, just clean up that oil leak I had. Oh, I'm not supposed to say that in camera in case they see it. But yeah, let's put this pipe away and let's get started. Hopefully I have everything.
All right.
So if you guys aren't aware, Subiebros is one of the first companies out there to come out with this kit so you can do your valve cleaning yourself. If you know anything about these motors are notorious for gunked up valves, but I'm pretty sure DJ's gonna, you know, make a video or DIY video, or we can do it here, of the valve cleaning install. But he's a lifesaver. I'm about, what, 20 hours or less away from my tune, and car's still taken apart. But we'll see if we can get this done.
I think we can, for sure.
Yeah, he drove all the way from Portland.
All right, so to prep the fuel lines for removal, we're going to remove the gas cap, which will relieve the fuel tank pressure. And then we're gonna pull the fuel pump fuse. So you just take off the lid to your fuse box. And if you ever have any questions about what fuse goes to what, there's a diagram in the lid here. You can see in the bottom right corner, there's a 15 amp fuel pump fuse. So that is this blue one right here in the bottom right corner. So we're just gonna pull that out. Just like that. And now we're gonna remove the gas cap, and then we're gonna turn the car on and let it idle until it dies, because obviously all the fuel runs out of the line.
So what's next?
All right, so now we're just gonna fire up and let her idle till she dies. A lot of people might be surprised about how long it takes. For most cars, in climates, it usually takes like 8 to 12 minutes. So it's gonna be a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. 35.
It sticks out a little bit in the front. Oh, there it goes.
We wanna just be sure that all the fuel is out of the lines that we can get. So we're gonna go ahead and try cranking it over a few times just to make sure that we got all the fuel out. Maybe one more time. Perfect. Ooh.
Almost started.
All right, let's do one more. All right, so now that we're done getting all the fuel out of the line, we got to remove the charge pipe, and then we're going to drain the coolant, and then basically we begin the process of just removing the intake manifold. So the first step that we're gonna do is we're gonna drain about a gallon of coolant out. And the reason for that is to lower the coolant level below the intake manifold, because there's a few hoses that carry coolant through it. So by draining the gallon out of it, when we remove those hoses, it won't spill out. All right, so we're underneath the car. You'll need to remove your splash guard if you haven't, but right here, this is the little screw valve to drain the coolant out of.
Get that right in there somewhere.
Yep.
It's too dark. Can't really see it.
Well, it's right there.
Yeah.
And it's just like a big Phillips head screw, basically.
Okay.
And we're just gonna catch it with this jug and funnel after it starts going. Do you want to pop the lid to the cool, or the
Oh yeah.
on the radiator? All right.
There you go. Going now.
Yeah. I'll tell you when to put it back on. So we're just gonna set this aside to refill later, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, that's gonna go back in the engine or back in the radiator, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Cool. Sounds good. All right, so now we got the coolant drained. We got about a little bit under a gallon that came out of the radiator. So there's that. We're gonna move on to the fuel line next.
To finish the intercooler install, we removed the battery, which you don't have to do for the valve cleaning, but we did remove the bolt that's holding on the fuel line here, which we're gonna need to do for the valve cleaning. And then we're also gonna remove this heat shield from the TGVs here next with the two 12mm bolts, or
I think it's 12.
Three? Is it 3 bolts or 2? All right, so we're going to disconnect the fuel line, which in order to do that, this blue tab we're just gonna lift up on it. You wanna have a rag handy because sometimes you'll get a little bit of gasoline dripping. So we just pulled this little guy up like that. And then you just kind of, well, you gotta pop this clip off. So now we loosen that up, got that clip off, and then you'll see it just, oh, there you go. Just slides off like that, and be careful.
Smell the gas.
Yep. So that's why it's important to completely.
Ooh, let's clear it out.
Yeah. That's why it's important to completely run the engine out of fuel, because imagine, I mean, we let the car run for 10 minutes, so you can imagine what would happen if you tried to disconnect the fuel line when it was full pressure.
It would be spewing fuel everywhere.
Yeah. Basically now there's not really like a set, there's not like set steps in removing the intake manifold per se. What we have to do though is just disconnect all the points that things are clipped onto the manifold, disconnect all the hoses. Since we drained the coolant, you shouldn't really get any coolant running out of the lines that supply coolant through the intake manifold. So it should be just a matter of going through and lots of removing clips and hoses.
Nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
And all that.
It's nothing too complicated. It's just a lot of different items. And sometimes your hoses might be a little stuck. This one, we wiggle it.
So obviously it's never been taken out before.
Yeah. And so with the lines, since we're going to be working in this area, I always like to take the lines and just kind of, you know, tuck them back so that they're out of the working area like that. So for this line, so I'm just pushing down. There's a hose that's in between here. It doesn't have a clip on it.
Oh, okay.
I'm just pushing that off.
Oh, no clip on that, huh?
Nope.
Okay.
And so now this gets us the access to, this is the secondary clip on the fuel line that we'll need to remove. The way this one works is there's two tabs on either side. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pinch them, the two tabs together.
Okay.
And then the blue clip will come up.
Oh, okay. So, typical fuel lines, huh?
Yeah. But underneath, you just squeeze the two tabs together and then push up a little. There we go. See how that popped up now?
Oh, gotcha. There you go.
So that relieves the fuel line. And then, the nice thing about these types of lines is they're really easy to reinstall, because you just fully insert the metal piece and then you just clip it down.
That's it.
So yeah, the way they designed them makes it pretty easy. So now that we've got the fuel line out of the way, like I said, it's basically just removing hoses and clips now. So we're just gonna kind of go to town, getting everything off the manifold. So this guy doesn't actually have to be removed. We just removed the clips from there.
To get that out the way.
Yeah, exactly. And then we're gonna do the same thing with the battery, or the cable going to the alternator here.
So I was just thinking, if you were doing your valve cleaning, it's also a good idea to might as well just do your EGR delete and your TGB delete too. Yeah. Since you're going to be in there anyways, so might as well.
Exactly. Yeah, if you're planning on doing those mods and you haven't already, and you're at, 20,000 plus miles, it's not a bad idea to consolidate, because you're going to be removing the EGR system and the TGVs to do this service. Obviously you have the EGR delete.
Yeah, so we won't be able to show that process.
No, but there's the plate. Essentially, to perform this service, all you would have to do is disconnect the EGR from the back of the intake valve, and then remove there's an upper portion here that you just have to disconnect that. It's literally 4 bolts.
Yeah.
You don't actually have to remove the entire system, but if you're planning on doing that modification anyways, this is not a bad idea to go ahead and do it at this time.
Yeah, and I always recommend the TGVs and the EGR Elite, especially how cheap they are.
Yeah.
You know, and the performance benefits.
If you're doing the TGVs, you might as well do the EGRs while you're at it, since the two systems work in tandem. So definitely.
It's not a bad idea.
So now we're going to just disconnect the sensor here. So we got that. So you can see we got this guy off, this off. There's two vacuum lines down here that we're going to disconnect. If you can see that on the back side of the alternator.
Okay.
Down there. Those ones don't have clips, so you can just kind of get your hand in there. And they're pretty big hoses, so they're easy to remove by hand for the most part.
Just stuck on there.
Yeah. If you have trouble getting them off, what I usually do is if it's like this and you can't really if you can twist them, that's the best way to do it. But if you can't, you can try to give it a little nudge, like by getting a flathead on the end there and there we go. And you kind of push as you pull. There's that.
So how do you know which is which?
It's pretty easy because these two hoses, they're molded hoses. So naturally they line up.
Oh, okay, got you.
With the port you can see that the port, one's actually slightly longer than the other. So if you look at these two hoses, when they sit together, the one hose is longer. See, one's longer and one's shorter.
Oh, so you can't mix those up.
Yeah. So it's pretty easy to tell, you know, and they run on top and underneath each other. So most of the hoses, since they're molded in place, even if you don't remember exactly where they go, they kind of naturally bend where they're supposed to go.
So they'll naturally fall into place as you're putting everything back together.
Exactly. So usually it's not too bad. So we got those guys off. Now we're gonna...
More hoses.
Yes. It's really just a matter of removing a whole bunch of hoses here. So we're gonna go here.
No.
Whoop. Oh. So this you can just kind of put back there. And we'll put this guy back on there so we don't lose it. You know, in some people that have done this, also in order to remove less hoses, they'll try to fold the intake manifold up. But honestly, I find it a lot easier and you have less problems if you just fully remove it.
Okay.
Instead of trying to just take off a minimal amount of hoses. This one's a lot easier, in my opinion, to remove. You can either remove it at the throttle body or back here, but I think it's a lot easier because it's more accessible to grab it back here. I'm gonna try to get this loose.
Okay. And this is the throttle body right here, just for reference.
Yep.
It's hard to tell on camera.
There we go.
There we go. Do we have any spillage?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, the coolant drain does wonders for sure. Okay. This is the coolant line that you teed together with after doing the EGR delete.
Oh, okay, got it.
So if you have the EGR, you're gonna pull the line off the EGR, but since you have the delete, we just have to separate this line because it goes into the throttle body. And disconnect, there's an electronic connector on the throttle body right here. So here's your clutch slave cylinder, and right below it is this electronic connector for so it's just right here. It's just a clip you push in. Yep.
It's moving.
There we go.
Where's that?
Whoop. Now we got our hose back. We're on the back side. We're on the back passenger side of the intake manifold, and this may not be obvious unless you're looking for it, but I think it's a 12 millimeter bolt that holds this it holds these connectors down here. So we got to get that off.
So just for reference, we're going back this way to the passenger side.
Yep. The bolt's not on there very tight. All right, so now we have everything removed that we can. So now we're gonna undo the 12 millimeter, or actually
Is it 12?
we're gonna undo the 14 millimeter bolts, all 8 of them. 4 on each side that are holding the intake manifold on where the TGVs are. So we're gonna go ahead and remove that and then lift it off. All right, so 12 millimeter. We're just gonna break these guys loose because we're gonna get them out with the power tool.
Hopefully they're not on too tight. We torqued them down according to the torque specs, but
yeah, these ones, actually the torque specs on these are really light, surprisingly. I mean, you're bolting plastic onto aluminum, so it makes sense, but it shouldn't be too bad.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see that I'm breaking them loose with not too much effort.
There you go, just what, 8?
All right, so we got all 8 loose. Just so we don't drop any, we'll just snag them out. They're all the same length, so you don't have to worry about getting them mixed up. There's one more, this giant wiring harness is connected on a clip that you can only get to once we lift up the intake manifold.
Okay. Oh, it comes off really easily.
Yeah, so you can.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah, see how it's buried back here?
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh, that's it. No. So this comes right out. Huh?
Look at that.
Look at that. Intake manifold is out.
I mean, what if we weren't filming? I mean, that's to get this thing off after, assuming you've already got your intercooler off and stuff, it's like 15-20 minutes.
It's not that bad.
No. You can see that, well, now we can see all the different points that it's connected. So, you know, you got a hose here, there, disconnected that, the electronic there, the hose here. Then of course the EGR if you have it.
Yeah, it's the EGR delete kit. Right
Yeah. And then this electronic connector. And then that's it.
Wow. Throttle body's a little dirty.
Yeah. So now we just gotta lift off the TGVs, deletes. And you can see, well, so you don't have a AOS. So it's interesting, you can see, how many miles have you had the EGR delete in?
About maybe 20,000 or so.
Okay, but yeah, look, you can see here, do you see all that built up oil?
Yeah.
So obviously that's, oh yeah, and you can kind of see it condensing on the edge there.
Gotcha.
So I mean, that's all oil, that's all something that would be removed by an AOS. And then, you know, you can see there's a little bit of varnish in there.
Yeah.
So
should we clean that off before we put everything back on?
Oh yeah, we definitely will. As we put it back together, we'll go ahead and wipe it down. You can see that there's plenty of dirt on the outside, and you know, again, see all that oil?
Yeah. Air oil separator, definitely a must. So lower TGVs is next, I think?
Yeah. So for the lower TGVs, well, in order to get access to all of the bolts that hold it on, we have to remove this insulation.
Oh, okay. There's a rubber.
Yeah, so there's a couple rubber pieces that run across down here. And it's pretty straight. I mean, you just got to push the hoses out of the way and stuff to be able to pull it out.
Okay.
So that's the next step. On the fuel pump there, it just has this little rubber cap that just... And then this next one, I believe, also you just kind of finagle your way. So there's this one. Okay. These are all just meant to insulate, you know, the fuel lines and stuff like that from the heat of the engine. So it's not a bad idea either to take a... These are kind of confusing to install. So if you take a picture with your phone of how they're oriented first, it's not a bad idea. I guess we'll look at this video.
Yeah. Could do that.
Yep. So, like I said, you know, with these, with the wires and stuff here, you just got to find a, you just kind of push it around. It's just foam.
Just getting it back in.
Yeah. Yeah, getting it back in is a little bit more difficult, as you can imagine. But, I mean, it's not bad. Gotta talk nice to it.
Wow.
All right, so you can see here though, see these 2 bolts in the back were hidden under the foam.
Gotcha.
That's why we had to do that.
And we'll switch sides. Removing of the foam.
Yeah, and then for this one though, we have to remove this 12mm bolt here holding this bracket on because we can't get the foam slipped out from under it. Yeah, little one's a little stuck. So we got the last foam piece out. We had to do those 2 bolts to remove the bracket. Then we also removed these 2 electrical connectors that were routed through the center of the foam piece. But now that that's out, we have full exposure of all the bolts needed to remove the lower TGVs. So we're gonna go ahead and do that.
Some 12s?
Yep, just 3 12s now.
Okay.
So when we remove this, you want to be really careful. Like, here's a little rock. You don't want any debris to fall in when you remove these to the cylinder, that's for sure. Yeah. So just make sure you don't have a lot of debris. If you do, vacuum it up or remove it. And then now we have the top. We have the intake side of the cylinder head. And we're going to slide out these little inserts.
What are those?
You can see that they're coated.
Oh, okay.
Yep. I mean, it's but yeah, you can see, I mean, just from those, you can see.
Oh, look, all that gunk on there.
Yeah.
Holy crap, yeah. Ugh.
Yep.